positive. Here's some good news. Summerlee wins re-election in the U.S. House of Representatives in Pennsylvania's 12th district. You'd be surprised at how many Latino men are conservative. I'm not surprised at all. This is the exact same. This is the exact same thing that has been happening for non-college educated men across the board. For white non-college educated men, they've swung wildly in favor of Trump, or have always been in favor of Trump, and have only increased their margins. The difference is that for Latino, non-college educated Latino men, they have moved by dramatic numbers over to the Republican side. The smallest margins come from the non-college educated black men, and yet that has been a massive point of contention this entire time. Hold on. Here, AP's latest calls. Kamala Harris is winning Illinois. Almost every region of Florida has shifted to the right. In comparison to 2020, nearly all of Florida has moved right during this presidential election cycle. Miami-Dade County saw the greatest increase with an 18 percentage point shift right. It was enough to move the county from the Democrats' column in 2020 to the Republicans this year. Steve Kornacki's back on MSNBC. Let's take a look at what he has to say. But hold on. There it is.
Fits that profile we talk about. High concentration of college degrees, higher income. There's no county in Pennsylvania in the Trump era that has become more Democratic to the degree that Chester County has. So as you start to look at the results come in here tonight, it'll be a while, see what Biden got here, 58%, maybe set a benchmark in your head of 60%. Can Harris break 60% in Chester? Because what's happening in Pennsylvania, and this is going to be a theme in the two other northern tier battleground states, what's happening in Pennsylvania is the Democratic base is geographically contracting. Trump came along in 2016 and he started to run up massive margins in rural areas of the state, rural blue-collar areas of the state. And what's happened is the Democratic base has become more geographically concentrated into cities and metro areas. Again, suburbs, places, as I say, keep saying it.
Oh, MSNBC gave me a nice little shout out.
Concentrations of college degrees. So what the Democrats increasingly need to do is just focus on running up margins in those places that can offset the Trump gains elsewhere in the state. So that's what these three counties are all about. Bucks is a big one, about 450,000 people here. It's a little bit different. This is a true swing county here. How this one goes tonight could tell us a lot about how the state is going. It's just, it's more blue collar than these other collar counties. So we're going to be watching there. South Central, Pennsylvania, sort of this region in here, Harrisburg, Lancaster, York. This is actually an area. There are some Republican counties in here, but this is an area where Trump had some slippage. Cumberland County. This is an area where Trump had some slippage in 2020. A potential area of growth here for Democrats. We're going to keep an eye on this region. Western Pennsylvania. You see a lot of blue here again because it's vote by mail. These are almost all going to be red tonight. And this is, when I say Trump has been running up the score, these are the counties where he gets 65, 70, 75% of the vote, all in this part of the state. And I think where the game may be won or lost in Pennsylvania is going to be northeast Pennsylvania. I think we showed you at the start of the night, but I'll go back to it again. Going to be paying a lot of attention to Lackawanna County, and we've got about a quarter of the vote in here. Again, this is the vote by mail, but here's the story in Lackawanna County where the city of Scranton is. This was pre-Trump a big Democratic bastion. Trump, look at that. He almost won this in 2016. What a shift. Democrats actually jumped up to close to a 10-point win here in 2020. Was that because Joe Biden and his Scranton ties? Was that because of, something else, changing attitudes towards Trump, perhaps? Big question here. And there's a lot of counties like this in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin.
Thank you, Qatari
Big
Cat.
question here is, can Trump
For
get
the
this back to
69 gift of
2016
subs.
levels, or really, can he win this county? That's what he wants to be doing. And there's also a lot of these counties in this sort of stretch of the state right here. You've got a lot of counties with substantial Hispanic populations. And that's the other thing that the Trump campaign has been talking about. Berks is where the city of Reading is. Reading is about 2/3 Hispanic, largest concentration of Hispanic voters anywhere in the state. Trump actually, he lost the city of Reading. He made gains there in 2020. He made gains in a lot of these small, mid-sized cities in Pennsylvania, sort of this part of the state right here, that have substantial Hispanic populations. His campaign is betting a lot on that being a trend that continues this election, and there being improvement for Trump in those small, mid-sized cities and the counties around them. So we're going to be paying attention to that as it comes in. So again, Democrats just need to get massive margins out of Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the suburbs right around them. And Trump needs to get back to his 2016 levels in the blue-collar parts of the state. Again, it's pretty much just vote by mail that you're seeing there in Pennsylvania. But as this takes shape, that's what we're going to be looking for. And just take a quick look back here at Georgia. We've been monitoring everything. I will tell you this. One thing I've been looking at, and this is the clearest thing yet in terms of completed counties, you're always looking to see when you have all the vote in a county and you compare it to the last election and you say, is there a trend? So one of the things, there's like 3 or 4 of these categories we're looking at, but one of them we've said is the rural counties in Georgia, the heavily Republican rural counties, and it's very consistent. We now have 15, maybe 20 of them that are basically complete right now. Very small, but in just about all of them, Trump is running a point to 3 points better than he did in 2020. And that was one of our questions in Georgia. Is Trump going to slip a couple of potentially critical points in his core parts of the state? So we are not seeing that there. But there's a lot more, obviously, we're going to be looking for as Georgia continues to come in.
All right, as we continue to watch that vote come in, as Steve continues to parse those results, we're looking ahead toward 9 o'clock Eastern time. Just a few minutes from now, polls are going to be closing in a wave of
Purple Plasma, thank you for the 25
states.
gifted.
We're going to have poll closings in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan, and more. We're going to get to all of it. Stay with us.
PA Jewish vote, exit polls show 78% for Harris, versus 22% for Trump. It's not surprising in the least bit that that is the case. That tracks with the rest of the country. So, is PA locked in for Harris? What are your early predictions? There's no way that I can tell you anything like that yet. There's been a ton of demographic shift in rural Georgia. A lot of white flight. Amendment 4 for Florida is currently at 47% yes with 90% reporting. Brother, I am Brian. Kill me if we can't even pass this basic ass shit. Wait. Abortion is at fucking less than it. Abortion is sub 50% in Florida. You mean 57%? That's not looking too good either. Anyway, let's continue. This is, I mean, Ohio is like very strange. Like there's a market shift towards blue in Ohio. Whereas the places that were red to begin with, have become increasingly more red. There's obviously some population changes happening. But the places to look out for here are going to be for North Carolina and Georgia. But once again, remember, this kind of shift This kind of shift blue in Ohio could mean good things for what the fuck? Oh, here it is. Could mean good things for the blue wall here, okay? This is it. This is the Kamala Harris pathway to victory. Okay? This right here is what will take out Donald Trump. That's what they need. It's good that Georgia is competitive. I mean, it'd be nice. I'm an Ohioan. I'm telling you, man, it can't swing. The JD Vance effect is what they're calling it. They're calling it the greatest vice presidential pick of all time. Like better than Sarah Palin. What Sarah Palin did to the Maverick McCain campaign, JD Vance is doing specifically to Donald Trump in one key state. VA called for Harris by decision desk. Wee woo. Virginia has been called by decision desk for Kamala Harris. Even though CNN has not called it yet. DeSantis is now saying Amendment 3 has failed and Amendment 4 has failed. He said this an hour ago. Amendment 3 and 4 fail and shows that Floridians aren't buying into the political games anymore. People want real solutions, not just empty promises. The fuck are you talking about? It's the most that is the most hardline real solution you can get. It's a fucking constitutional amendment in the form of a ballot measure, you goddamn idiot. God, oh my God. Ay. Por Dios, yo voy a votar por Donald Trump. Ay. Okay. Sorry. Let's see if Edinger Mentum is around. Can you speak German? No. Next round of polls are closing at 9 p.m. Eastern, which is in 10 minutes. Arizona, Colorado, which we won't know about for a while. Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New York, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Wyoming, and Wisconsin. Delaware race is called, perhaps bittersweet for Biden. Must be bittersweet for Joe Biden to watch as the vice president carries his home state of Delaware. Okay. Kim Jong-un apparently voted in Las Vegas. This is really, really devastating. I'm not going to lie. This is a sad state of affairs. Florida rejecting the abortion measure is fucking crazy. Oh, they are so cooked. Florida is so fucking cooked. It is the most cooked state in the nation. It's so bad. It's so bad. Like the weed thing is also shocking, but the abortion thing, god damn, dude. God fucking damn. Our split ticket pre-election forecast was D+5 in New Hampshire. Gotta say, that was one of those things that raised my eyebrows. I thought from my priors we were on track to undershoot her there. Guess not. Yeah. New Hampshire was New Hampshire potentially underperforming for Kamala Harris was a scary sign, and it turns out that It turns out that the New York Times needle has Harris projected at a margin of 3.9 in New Hampshire and 5.1 in VA. Very big swing towards Trump predicted by pre-election polls, but not to this extent in light blue states. Floridians get what they voted for, law. I know, but you have to remember it's a fucking massive state, and there's plenty of people who don't agree. And also, again, these constitutional measures, these constitutional amendments in the form of ballot measures are still incredibly popular. Once again, it's literally almost 60% popularity. The problem with Florida is it has to reach 60%. So when something is 57% and it doesn't pass, it's still ridiculous. Okay? Like both amendments are above 55%, both weed legalization, marijuana legalization, and also abortion protections. They were both above 55%, abortion at 57%, and yet it still it doesn't pass because it has to be over 60%. So it is inherently undemocratic when the majority of the Floridian population is like, we want this, and then they still don't get it. It is still shocking to me that it couldn't reach 50%, though. That's what I mean. What I'm saying about how cooked fucking Florida is it should pass 60% in Florida. That's what's shocking to me. Like, are they that polarized? Are Americans that polarized, especially for a state like Florida? Are they that fucking right wing that they couldn't reach over the 60% margin in a state like Florida? This is unheard of. Like an abortion state constitutional amendment not passing 60% in Florida is unthinkable. Maybe 4 years ago, and especially 8 years ago. It's unthinkable. Way too many fucking Republicans, I guess, moved to Florida. And like the worst kind of Republicans, not even like normal Republicans. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said there have been multiple bomb threats called into polling locations across the state, but said so far there's no credible threat to the public. Shapiro, Democrat, spoke in a news conference. There's fucking bomb threats everywhere. Holy shit. Free MAGA merge at Trump's watch party. Yeah, Florida is experiencing the biggest migration in a generation. Here, 10 state locals are moving to. Florida has had the most right-wing shift, the most right-wing migration shift in the entire country, doubling the migration pattern, politically speaking, in comparison to even Texas, which has also had a 20-plus Republican, 20-point migration shift. So that is pretty consequential for the state. It changes the state makeup dramatically. New York Times says with more than 95% of results reported in Florida, the state has clearly moved to the right since 2020. That year, Donald Trump won by about 3 percentage points. He seems to be on track to carry it by about 13% points. Thoughts at the moment. Florida was a bloodbath. Trump is slightly favored in GA. Harris will win VA comfortably, though it'll shift right by several points from 2020. Not looking good early for Brown in Ohio in terms of separation with Harris. Blue wall looms large. Outside of the blue wall, North Carolina is looking tight and polls are still open in Arizona and Nevada. Not the way you'd prefer to start the night if you're Harris, but a lot of game left to play. Yeah. If Trump wins, will he actually declassify the JFK files or is this just hopium? Yes, he's a fucking liar. He said that about 9/11 too. Do you not remember? Donald Trump literally went on Alex Jones's TV show in 2016 and said he was going to declassify 9/11 files, and then he did not. So he just lies all the time to curry favor with like right wing to curry favor with like right wing weirdos. like the conspiracy people. Isn't it bad overall for the Republicans that they condense all the people into a few states? I mean, that's not really happening either. So we shall see. Why is she doing so bad right now? The reason why it looks like she's doing bad, and we'll see. These next couple of hours is the make it or break it. Okay. The next couple of hours is going to be the make it or break it situation. Because if the blue wall, which is the only pathway to victory for Kamala Harris, does not, it's going to come down to Pennsylvania, as I said. It's going to come down to Pennsylvania, as I said earlier. If the blue wall stands strong, then Kamala Harris wins 270 plus electoral college votes. If it doesn't, then it's fucking Jover. I'm calling it in Germantum right now. Blue wall is Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. All right. Josh, you are live.
Yeah.
How are things looking on your end?
Yeah, general takeaways. Trump, if you look at the rural areas, I'm looking specifically at Georgia now. If you look at the rural areas, he's not outrunning 2020 by all that much. Most of the rural areas are only showing a shift in his favor by about a couple points. That, like, ideally would not be a huge deal, but the problem is that when you look at, like, the result in 2020, you had such a close race that these rural areas shifting a couple points and maybe having higher turnout can tilt the race towards him. Kamala's hope, and this is what Dr. Bullock at University of Georgia, my old Southern politics professor, he told me when I asked about the state of the race, she will need, in the Atlanta metro area, she will need election day vote, which doesn't make up a huge percentage of the vote there, to give her like enough of a shift in the metro area to possibly, and enough turnout to possibly counteract those shifts in the rural areas. We don't have any fully completed Atlanta metro area counties right now, but I will say that she is not outrunning in these counties. Warnock did this. The path here, the idea here is that Warnock in 2022, when he faced Herschel Walker, Senator Warnock, he faced losses in rural areas, but he was able to outrun in the metro area by enough to actually outperform Biden by a large amount. He won by 3 points. He only won by like 0.1. The problem for the vice president is that she is not, in the current totals, is not outrunning in the metro area, Biden's performance in the metro area by as much as Warnock did in 2022. We will see. There is a possibility that she could increase her margins and do slightly better in the case of a blue shift in the Atlanta metro area. If these final 20%, 30% of votes in these metro area counties are more Democratic than the results we have now, that could counteract these rural shifts. They're not especially huge, but I would say that Trump, for this, like, we don't have any completed counties in the metro area right now. Some counties, as more votes have come in, have shown a blue shift. Some have shown a slight red shift. If she was getting Warnock numbers in the Atlanta metro area, I think that she could be in a position to win Georgia. The problem is that she's not getting Warnock numbers.
Georgia's not looking great for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
AP is called Donald Trump for South Dakota, and AP is called Donald Trump for Louisiana and Wyoming, and Donald Trump has won the statewide vote in Nebraska and the 2 electoral votes. For the 3rd consecutive election, he won the popular vote on Tuesday, receiving 2 electoral college votes. Nebraska is one of the 2 states that divide electoral votes, with 2 votes going to the statewide winner and 1 apiece of the winner of each congressional district. Trump won Nebraska by 25 points in 2016, 19 points 4 years later. I don't know if he's like slated to outperform his.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and this is a credit to pollsters, I had an article, and it was an article that did very well. It doubted the new methodologies that pollsters were using that I thought, going off the track record of 2022, could be artificially deflating the Democratic vote, because that's what they did in 2022. They showed more Republican-friendly numbers in a lot of states that were just based off of right-wing media narratives, and they ended up being quite off. What they're doing now, with the methods that they use to capture the right-wing vote, the possible missing Trump voters, his support, by using these somewhat questionable methods, do seem to have been capable of capturing some degree of support that polling methods from 2020 might have missed. Yeah, Texas is not surprising here. Sells the world
Texas is
dead.
over. Blue Texas is over. The dream is dead.
Yeah, I will say that I was very much a Blexus denier back in 2023, and the liberals got very mad at me for that. But Texas, like, for all the dreams and all of the long-term election stuff people have talked about with Blexus, Texas shifted a lot to the right in 2016 actually. It shifted a lot to the right in 2016. 2020, it trended to the left a little bit, and then since then it's been stagnant. This is a consistent Trump, like, relative to the country, R+9, R+8, R+10 state. You are not, like, seeing, New York Times says shift from 2020. Like, in terms of Texas, you are not seeing like the types of trends that people expected to see. This is a long-term difficulty for Democrats. I think this is a result of racial depolarization, where you have these traditionally Democratic non-white populations moving away from the party. We saw inklings of this in 2022. The reason why Democrats were so successful in 2022 was because of their success with white voters. And the hope for the party, the Democratic Party, and the vice president here is that they can get something like 2022, where you have these collapses in states like Florida, these Republican strength in states like Texas, and Republican states that are uncompetitive in general. But in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they manage to hold their ground. Republican rule shifts are not that significant, and they manage to keep some strength in the suburban, urban areas. That's enough for them to carry these states. That's her path. That's why I'd still describe this race as a toss-up. I think that the potential world, and I had Kamala, I saw her as a slight favorite coming into this race, largely because of the Seltzer poll. The Seltzer poll, Ann Seltzer looks like she's kind of run out of luck. We'll see what Iowa looks like specifically. There may be some results in there. I think, Hassan, you have Iowa on the Axios thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spencer is here. He worked with me on the Chapo project that we've been doing on the religious right. He says that Cruz is likely to win. Again, this is something polling predicted. Yeah, that's Spencer. Say hi to Spencer.
Hi, Spencer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is, I mean, the way I looked at the situation, this is not unexpected at all from where I'm standing. I never thought that. I mean, like the way I saw it is like Georgia and North Carolina would be close and potentially a nice additional cherry on top. But like what has to stay strong in this situation is of course going to be Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now she can't lose any of that, but especially Pennsylvania, I think. Considering like the performance thus far in all these other states, do you feel like there's anything that, like, if the pollsters were not weighing for Trump support or were actually correct in their additional points for Trump in the way that they weighed in favor of Donald Trump because of his, because he's a turnout machine.
Yeah.
What does that say for Pennsylvania's chances?
Yeah. Well, Pennsylvania, this is probably going to be tight in these areas. I'm a little worried about, I think Wisconsin is maybe the place to worry about here. Joshua Smithy, who's very good in Pennsylvania, says that he thinks she's hitting her targets. I think she's very much in the race at Pennsylvania. Michigan, I think the New York Times still has her slightly favored. That matches with polling as well. So she still has that Midwestern path. She's not losing any of these safe states that could potentially compromise that.
Now Dems are doing the wait in line to vote tweets.
Yeah.
It's over. It's Jover.
Oh yeah.
It was early on in the day. It was the Republicans that were pumping out the "if you're in line, stay in line" tweets, and now the Democrats are pumping them.
Maybe not be by enough that she, as much as she may need to counteract these Like, I think this case in Georgia is that you have a death by 1,000 cuts of these rural shifts, these rural areas that are all moving to the right by 2, 3, 4 points. If you had a Warnock level performance in the Atlanta metro area, you could definitely counteract that. I think Warnock actually faced even more intense rural shifts in some parts of the state. But Kamala, as it stands in the metro area counties where we do have like 70, 80% turnout, she's not outrunning by as much as Warnock did. And that is her problem. Like Cobb County, I have the Washington Post swing thing here, 73% in. She's outrunning Biden by 2. That's like that's fine. That's respectable. If you go by like a even shift of this, she would win Georgia by 2 if every county in the state shifted like Cobb did. But when you have all these rural counties that are shifting to the right by 2 or 4 points, you're going to need like larger like shifts to the left in these metro area counties compared to 2020 than you currently have right now, especially when Fulton and DeKalb are basically running even with Biden in 2020. Her hope here, and I think Greg Bluestein, who's reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, said she needs to rely on an election day Hail Mary, where the election day votes for her are better than the early day votes for her. That's possible, but the level of votes that are counted in these states makes me skeptical that it could have that much of a shift.
So you're now you're still in the tank for Kamala Harris, but you've leaned even further to the center away from Kamala Harris's slight favor to win.
I would say that at this point, I consider this race to be a toss-up, as the New York Times says. I would have Trump as probably favored to win Georgia, unless we see something we don't expect in the metro area in terms of the election day turnout. There's maybe signs of a slight blue shift there. North Carolina, I think, is still in play. You had Orange County, which is one of the Research Triangle places that shifted towards her compared to 2020. You had some counties, Mitchell County, in the Appalachian areas that shifted towards her. There are some rough results for her in the rural areas, but we don't have anything. We don't have much out of Mecklenburg. We don't have anything out of Mecklenburg yet. We don't have anything out of Durham. Wake County is showing a shift towards her. I think North Carolina is possible, and that would be huge for her. That'd be very, very big. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, we just don't have much in yet, and it's hard to make many judgments.
Okay. All right. So it's Jover, is what you're saying. It's Jover.
I don't think it's Jover. I think this is kind of the world that polling predicted, where you have these movement towards Trump in these uncompetitive states. You have slightly reduced margins compared to 2020, but like a narrow but possible path through the Midwest. We don't have anything out of Wisconsin yet. Michigan, Pennsylvania, very early in their vote counts. Both could possibly go towards her. And the West is still completely up to question. We don't know how that'll go. But the big dream that people thought where she could potentially compete in Texas, she could potentially compete in Iowa.
Well, yeah. I think her being competitive in Texas was always fucking stupid. That was never going to be a thing.
I was always of the belief of that. People gave me shit for that.
I've never been a Bleggs' believer. I have routinely shied away from that, and I wasn't even like a firm committed believer in Georgia nor North Carolina. Yeah. So none of those things are important to me. The way I see it is like it's going to come down to Pennsylvania and
Wisconsin. I think Pennsylvania and
Wisconsin. Yes, exactly. And a lot of people yelled at me when I said Wisconsin is heavily dominated by rural and suburban voters, and Donald Trump does a really good job of captivating rural and suburban voters, and therefore Wisconsin is going to be a trickier battle. But pollsters, if they're correct on every other aspect of this, have also consistently put Kamala Harris as Kamala Harris's chances above Donald Trump by multiple points in Wisconsin. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was,
and the same goes for Michigan as well. Like Kamala Harris's chances in Michigan have, according to polls, looked a lot better. So is she going to underperform the polls, or is she going to perform as expected? And then Florida becomes still a toss-up.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean much, but like for the whole race, it's moving to Lenore.
We can't.
I think that makes sense. We'll just need more out of the Midwest before we see that. Yeah, the first results in Wisconsin are coming in.
Yeah, Trump doubles black support in Wisconsin, according to the NBC exit poll. This year, Trump is pulling 20% of the black vote versus 78% for Harris. 4 years ago, Trump won about 8% of black voters in the Badger State.
Yeah, this is all very much in line with what polling said.
Early vote in Nebraska, heavily D. Fisher is only 5 points behind Ricketts, with Ricketts expected to win easily, likely no Osborne upset.
Yeah. The polls kind of broke away from her at the very end there.
Yeah.
I don't think Democrats, like with the way that Ohio going to Trump, we'll see what the margin is there. Unless there's some insane upset in Montana, the Senate should probably go Republican.
So let's talk about New Hampshire. New Hampshire has some, I guess, like New Hampshire, Kamala Harris seemingly is underperforming.
Yeah. Well, she's performing about in line with the polling. Let me check what the New York Times projects in that state. But the rural areas there, you are seeing a shift towards Trump. I think like the story of the election we're seeing right now, and the Midwest could be an exception here. We'll see what that ends up looking like. Is that it has her at +4 in New Hampshire, which is a reduced margin compared to Biden, who won it by 7 points. What we are seeing here is that we have Kamala largely running in line with Biden support in urban areas and suburban areas, not really gaining on him like Democrats in 2022 did. Well, yeah, they called Texas for Trump, which is not much of a surprise.
Yeah.
Not really gaining on him in these areas like Biden did over Clinton, while facing losses in rural areas that move these states, I would say, in Trump's direction. I don't think she's out of the race at all. I think that the Midwest, if this is all very much in line with polling, the Midwest very much presented a world where she could win while doing poorly in like these non-competitive states and these less white states. But racial depolarization, I would say, is very much real. Rural shift towards Trump, I would say, is real in a way that we didn't see in 2022. And this, it's tough for Democrats. It presents as kind of a strange world where they might actually be in a very good position in lower turnout elections like midterms and special elections. But when the electorate opens up in a presidential race like it has now, they face this larger universe of voters who aren't quite as partisan. I wouldn't say this is the young men thing. I would say this is more about a minorities thing and rural voters, where this larger electorate is not as favorable to them as the midterm electorate was in 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, what's NBC saying? I have to go to the restroom real quickly. If you could take me off for a second.
Okay. Yeah. Just give me a call back when you're ready. All right. Energy momentum, everybody. Let's check in with the news. See what the fuck's going on there.
Wake finishes. We want to see Mecklenburg, the Triad. You got Greensboro.
I got to pee as well.
We don't have a ton here. Greensboro, Forsyth County, where Winston-Salem is. So still a bit more to come there. And then Georgia, look, 70% in now. Trump continuing with an advantage here. It's about 243,000 votes, and we are getting a lot more clarity in the Metro Atlanta area. A couple of things we talked about this. Democrats wanting to improve margins here. That's what they need to do. Cobb County is a place, where this was a Republican stronghold not long ago, where Democrats are running up the score lately. You see what happened in 2020. Biden won here by 14 points. Currently, 78% of the vote is in. Harris, this is the early vote likely. Harris is winning here by 16. The concern for Democrats is the remaining vote, we suspect, is that election day vote, a little bit more Republican friendly. 16 would be a very good margin for Democrats in Cobb, but does that come down? If it falls below that 2020 level at all, that's very alarming for Democrats. Fulton County, again, we've got the early vote in here, and now some of the same day as well. Look at that. It looks exactly like it did in 2020. Democrats want to grow that a little more. Again, concern for them. It's a big blue county, but if what's still to come in Fulton is a little less blue, and that number slips below 2020, that's a trouble sign for Democrats. We flagged Fayette County early in the night. Would this one flip? If the blob, I call it the blue blob there, was going to expand, this is the place. It's not quite all in, but almost all in right now. You see Trump with a 2.5-point lead. Now, that is progress for Democrats from 2020. This was a 7-point race in 2020, so it's progress for Democrats. Will it be enough progress? Again, those other big, giant suburban counties there are going to tell a lot of that story. We finally have a little bit in Gwinnett County. I just want to linger on this one for a minute because it's enormous. This county has over 1 million people. It has transformed demographically in the last generation. This used to be a staunchly Republican, heavily white county. It's now one of the most diverse in the country. Democrats, you can see Biden won here by 18 points in 2020. And again, the Democratic margin here, it's just been, look at this. In 2016, it was a single-digit race. It became almost 20 in 2020. Democrats want this over 20 tonight. Let's see. It's early there, but that's a key one just because of the size and because of the trajectory. So again, oh, and we can also just take a look. I said these sort of exurban, fringe Atlanta metro counties that are red. The question here is, do they become less red? The biggest of them is Cherokee County, and we got almost all of Cherokee County now. This is where Canton, Georgia is, one of the wealthiest counties in the state of Georgia here. Take a look. This is what happened in 2020. Donald Trump won here by 39 points. He's winning it. You could see almost the same as about 0.3 of a point off. The Trump
Needle
campaign,
showing leaning Trump.
Let's see here. They don't want big slippage. There's not big slippage. I think they would have liked to claw back a little bit more here, but they're not losing ground. And there are scenarios where that's enough for them in Georgia. You can look next door. Is Forsyth County. Now, this is another. This is very wealthy. This is a biggie you can see in terms of votes. This is a place where Trump lost.
Is there a threshold for you to feel proper nervous? I feel a little nervous.
Same day still to come, so room for Trump growth here. He's already overperforming a point.
I have time and time again repeated
That's
that.
an encouraging one for Republicans. You can just kind of complete this loop quickly. I'll just show you some
I don't
of
think
them
this
here.
is 2016.
Again, Hall County
The reason why I don't
won
think it's
almost
2016 is
all in.
because
Trump
it's not
had
like everyone was
slippage
super
here
hopeful.
In 2020, you see he's improved by about 1.5 points here. Not major, but this was a state that was decided by a fraction of a point in 2020. So any shift is significant. Barrow County,
2016
almost
was
all in.
like
Again,
looking
Trump
like
had
a banger for
slippage
Hillary
here
Clinton.
In 2020, a little bit more slippage here tonight for Trump. You can see Harris running 1.5 points better than Biden did. Trump basically level with 2020. And you can take a look down here at Walton County. Again,
How do
this
we
is
read
the
these
early
results?
vote
Is it even
in
worth
Walton County.
watching? Yes.
Trump had slippage here in 2020. 49 points, believe it or not, was slippage for the Republican. Tonight, 46. This is the early vote. Again, same day. Does it get back to 49? Does it get back to 50? That's what Trump wants with the remaining vote there. I think we've got just about all of Douglas County in right now. And again, Douglas County, it's one of these demographically, it's fast growing, it's transforming politically, it's diversifying.
There's an I can't celebrity endorsement
looks
Twitch
like
shows.
Douglas have achieved what they want to do here. Biden won this thing by 25 points in 2020, just about all in. Now Harris has it north of 30 points. That is something Democrats want to see there. So again, we zoom out statewide. It's a 6-point lead right now. We could also check in if you want. We could just take a look. We've got them marked off on here, and I'll show you. This is. We're talking about this in North Carolina, same in Georgia. There's a lot of rural counties with large African-American populations, and the question for Democrats is, can they improve? They'd like to improve turnout-wise, vote performance-wise, obviously, relative to last time. So again, I think we showed you earlier, Baldwin's just about all in. This is a change. This was a blue county in 2020. It's flipped over to Trump. All the vote is in right now. Look, you can see here, Wilkes County, just about
How soon
all
is
the vote
it
is in.
polite
Trump
to
by
start
17.
blaming leftists?
Trump won this thing, by about 13 points and change.
I'm sure
in
the Democrats have
2020.
already
So we're
decided
seeing a bit
exactly what flavor of leftist they're going to shit on. It's coming, though. They will always blame the left.
right now.
And they will always tack right, which is ironically the reason why
That
they're,
same-day vote, we're
I think,
seeing
losing
this
motion and momentum in a lot of these
It's
states.
similar, I think, to what we're looking at to what we're seeing so far in North Carolina. Here's another one, very small, but again, this is a large black population, 19 points here in 2020. Tonight it's sitting at about 16.5 with just about all the votes. And again, these slight differences in a state like Georgia can make all the difference. Where of all these millions of votes, we expect about 5 million votes. And in 2020, it was separated by 12,000 of them. So again, if there's any slippage for Democrats here off that 2020 number in full, that's a very bad sign for them. And they are at right now. Harris is at 72.6. This is the biggest single county in Georgia. 72-6, 72-6. If this number starts dropping with the remaining vote, with that remaining same-day vote to come in, even though that looks like an enormous Democratic win, and by numbers it is, it may not be enormous enough. The Democrats don't want any slippage there. So we'll be paying close attention to that one too, Rachel, as we get more from Georgia.
Okay. I was joking earlier, but now I think Brother Banks was really the canary in the coal mines. No, Brother Banks is in Florida. I mean, not in Florida, sorry, in fucking California. But it does mean something when people are not worried about Donald Trump to a degree where, like, even someone who wants to be brand friendly to a certain degree, or doesn't want to come across like someone who's hateful, is confident enough to be able to outwardly show support to Donald Trump. This means that a lot of people don't view Donald Trump as a danger to America, especially in our demographic, in our age group. That in and of itself is terrifying. It's also kind of funny because Brother Banks's assessment on the situation was damn near identical to all the fucking criticisms that I had of the Democratic Party in terms of like being hypocritical on the issue of immigration, in terms of like not outwardly communicating that they're anti-war and that like this type of shit tracks, this type of lack of communication on that agenda, on that front, gives Donald Trump the opportunity to say he's the fucking peaceful dove candidate. A lot of these were issues that I routinely talked about, that I said Kamala Harris was running a bad campaign. And for some weird reason, everyone was like, no, Hassan, you're wrong. Kamala Harris is running a good campaign. I still believe, in spite of all of that, that there are a lot of people who are like, I don't want to fuck with this Trump shit at all. But it was way too tricky. It was a massive gamble. Something that I reiterated over and over again for the past couple of months, non-fucking stop. And people said that I was completely wrong. And that, no, it's actually good to tack to the center. It's actually good. Why would anybody vote for you as the anti-migrant party if the other side is constantly increasing the pressure on migrants? So all of that are massive flaws in the way that Kamala Harris has campaigned thus far. Decision Desk is calling North Carolina for Donald Trump, saying that Donald Trump is projected to win North Carolina. Once again, North Carolina and Georgia, competitive states, but overall, they were a part of the 7 swing states that we were talking about. But the ones that are important in Pennsylvania, I have said this for months. And if Pennsylvania falls, it's Jover. That's when you know it's 100% Jover. Okay? Speaking of Pennsylvania, oh my God, Kaya, chill. Speaking of Pennsylvania, Michael from Pennsylvania, I'm calling him now. He is going to be the naysayer tonight. I'm just letting you know. Okay? Don't freak out. But his attitude and mine are pretty close. Our analysis is almost identical, but he has on the Trump is going to win side of this argument, and I'm on the Kamala Harris is slated to win side of this argument. But like I said, this is all coming down to Pennsylvania. So let's hear his analysis on the matter. I don't know why he's not picking up after saying, when am I going to come on? This motherfucker's in the chat being like, yo, pull me in. And then I call him and he doesn't pick up. Where? Literally in the chat going, hey, pull me in, pull me in, pull me in. And then when I'm like, all right, let's have you on, he's like, never mind. That's crazy. how are you going to be in the chat being like, yo, can I come on? When can I come on? And then when I pull you in, you're not even there.
Okay, first of all, could I just say that I was, listen, I was malding a little bit. So I left the room for a minute and then I called Caroline.
All right, let's hear it.
Now you're ready. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic. Hi, everybody. Mike from PA Central _committee on Twitch. I'm not trying to I don't feel good. I feel terrible.
All right. I think it's still too early to pull I told you so's in terms of.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I told
but
you so's or anything.
you and I, like I've repeated over and over again, are in agreement in terms of Kamala Harris's outreach strategy being absolutely dog shit, and the dangers presented by Donald Trump. But you were always on the Donald Trump is slightly favored to win train, where I was always on the Kamala Harris is still slightly favored to win train, even though her chances of her slight favor shifted in Trump's direction, especially in the last month. Having said that, however, all of this is going to still come down to the state of Pennsylvania. This is your forte as someone, for those of you who don't know, Michael from Pennsylvania, Central _committee, has worked in Pennsylvania politics for many years. So he understands the situation on the ground pretty well. And he has been warning about Kamala Harris's chances in Pennsylvania for quite some time. So with all that said, let's hear what your assessment is on Pennsylvania. Or actually, you know what? What is your I told you so moment, if you want to talk about that too?
Well, okay. So I think there was, I got a lot of shit for basically bucking a lot of the trend and being like, actually, I think the evidence is that the polls are accurate or underestimating Trump.
Fair.
And a lot of people were like, no. Like there was the Seltzer, whatever her name is, Momentum, that one poll from Iowa. There was but mostly like I looked into it pretty extensively, and I've bought polls myself and run them. So it's not just like, me as like an amateur looking at it. It's somebody who's like ordered them and designed them and run them. And I think her polling method is archaic. It's, I agree with part of what she does, but basically she does this thing called random digit dialing, which is something that we did like 20 years ago. And it doesn't have like this, it doesn't have like the internet component, and it's not very good at like matching up for people that are harder to contact. Like a lot of pollsters reacted to 2020 and 2016 by realizing that there was a pool of low propensity Republican voters that Donald Trump was tapping into that were not being contacted. And there was absolutely no evidence to believe that those people were being successfully contacted. And so we always thought like that, and they weren't doing anything like putting a blanket weight on the polls. Like the polls were not in any way like manipulated. They were just trying to figure out how to be accurate. And I think a lot of the pollsters have been vindicated. If anything, they still might have an underestimation of Trump.
You think the polls are still underestimating Trump?
Well, I mean, okay, so basically the world that we're in is like, this morning, Nate Silver said that he ran 80,000 simulations and 40,000 of them showed Kamala Harris winning, right? Well, we're now in the world where about 20,000 of those simulations where she won are completely off the table.
Yeah. So if you're talking about like Georgia and North Carolina, like I have
East
never
Coast strategy is gone.
Yeah,
and that was actually a major source of like optimism for her, like the idea that Georgia and North Carolina might be available for her.
I never cared about that. For the record, I always saw that as like bonus points if it happens, but it's not all that significant. And I think that the overall strategy here has always been the blue wall and to see if it holds or not. And looking at the performance of Kamala Harris in the other swing states that she did pump a shitload of ads into with bad communication overall, with bad messaging overall. It doesn't matter if you're pumping $30 million of television ads into a area into a competitive race if the message that you're pumping is not is not one that people are responding to, right?
Yeah.
And I
Which
think
they
that
weren't.
yeah, no, for sure.
There was no evidence that she spent $1 billion. There was no evidence that any of her ad money moved the numbers at all.
No,
So
there was
the, like,
evidence that it didn't
strategy-
move. No, there
Yeah.
was actually evidence to the contrary, that all of the ads that she pumped into even Pennsylvania didn't actually shift the polls in her direction. As a matter of fact, it shifted the polls in Trump's direction in many instances, not because of those ads in particular, but that means that, like, obviously the message wasn't resonating with the voters.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if she pulls it out, like, you know, my preference is that she pulls it out over Donald Trump. I don't want Donald Trump to be president, but I have to say that I didn't vote for her because of the genocide, and I know that I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that didn't vote for her because she refused to stand up for humanity, international law, the United Nations, and I'm proud to have voted for, you know, PSL. I didn't vote for
There's
Jill
300,000
Stein.
people in here that are going to try to figure out where you live to kill you. I'm just letting you know.
I just want people to know that, like,
He's a swing state voter, chat.
No, you know, and I've said
Get
this
him.
for months, and I
He's
said
a
this for
Pennsylvania
months,
voter.
and I said this for months, and that was like, if, you know, they don't break from Biden on here, I will not support them because it's just unconscionable and it's unsupportable. And I think, and I wasn't doing it because of me or privilege or any of those other things, but because if there is Arab and Muslim voters that are out there in Dearborn who are losing family members, I'm going to act in solidarity with them.
Okay.
I'm not going to act and stand aside. And
Okay.
and I'm sorry for getting off on that soapbox.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to
analysis,
the analysis in Pennsylvania
I'm
right
looking
now.
at it right now. Yeah,
So-
I'm trying to, like, right now we still have very few in the way of, like, firm returns, and 75% of election day returns are 75% of the votes come on election day in Pennsylvania. So I'm looking at stuff right now.
Yeah.
And yeah. Wow.
There have been very little shocking results so far, as Associated Press has also said, and that AP race is calling Donald Trump winning the 3rd congressional district in Nebraska and the 1 electoral vote as well. AP race call. Donald Trump wins the 3rd congressional district in Nebraska and 1
the third. Okay.
Yeah, the
Not
3rd.
Omaha.
Yeah, he won the other votes as well. Rural 3rd congressional district on Tuesday, the former president easily defeated the Democratic candidate and Vice President Kamala Harris in the state's most conservative of his 3 districts, covering 80 counties and 2 time zones. The district is also one of the most conservative in the country and supported Trump by 3-1 in both 2016 and 2020. The last time the district voted for a Democrat that represented was in 1958. A decision desk says Harris is leading with about 1/5 of the estimated votes counted a little more than an hour after the polls closed. The earliest results included mailed ballots, which have historically favored Democratic candidates, but the gap is narrowing as expected, with election day votes from across the state being added.
So I'm looking at Lehigh County, or Northampton County, rather, excuse me, results coming in, which is one of the key swing counties in Pennsylvania. There's something called the Lehigh Valley, which includes Northampton and Lehigh County and a little bit of Harbin County and maybe a little bit of Montgomery County, that kind of region. It's, you have like Philadelphia on the east side, that's southeast. Then you have the collar counties, and then you have like the Lehigh Valley is like central eastern, and that is like one of the key swing areas. And I'm looking at some of Northampton County results so far, and Donald Trump is leading in election day votes in so far that's been reported by. Let me see here. Let me do the math because I don't have.
Can I just? I want to pause briefly while you're looking for that.
Is what I'm.
I want to pause briefly, or you keep looking for that, and I want to address something in the chat. I see a lot of people saying like, "Congratulations, Michael from Pennsylvania, when Gaza is leveled by Donald Trump. I'm sure you'll have your moral victory." So the thing I want to explain to every single person here is, regardless of what your perspective is, okay, there is a fundamental mismatch in what I believe and what you believe if you don't think that Kamala Harris's job in this circumstance is to actively communicate to people exactly like Mike and many others that she is going to be different than Joe Biden. This was one of the major messaging flaws that I kept reiterating over and over and over again. There were no votes lost if she separated from Biden on Gaza policy, and only votes to gain. So you can get mad at him all day, every day. And that's understandable. Like, it's an emotional moment right now. And it's beyond emotional because Donald Trump is going to be incredibly damaging. And he's still, I'm not talking like he's winning. I'm not saying that he's going to win. But having said that, you have to recognize that this is a flaw of the campaign. If you consistently, if there's one thing that you remember from today, if there's one thing that you carry with you into the next election cycle and the election cycle after that, it is that this is, if there is a failure here from the Kamala Harris campaign, it is entirely in her hands. Okay, I say this as someone who still is slightly favoring Kamala Harris's chances to win, with the hopes that they pull through on the blue wall. But having said that, once again, harm reduction voting on certain aspects on this issue or that issue is not a resounding message that is going to drive turnout. That's it.
Yeah. I don't mind if people are mad at me. Obviously, like the thing that I would say is, first of all, it doesn't appear that the green votes are enough to make up the difference. Number one, and the second thing is, like, I'm looking at the numbers here in Northampton, and basically she's winning 44% of the day of vote in Northampton County, which is 75% of the expected. So that's like 75% of the vote will be that day of vote, and so I would say she's behind where she needs to be in Northampton right now. I'm going to go take a look at 2020, pull that up as well. And like at the end of the day, when we look back at this election, we're going to see, like, when Kamala Harris first jumped in, she was very popular because people thought of her as like a fresh face who was going to break from Biden and possibly represent, she picked Tim
almost
Walz.
$1 billion in funds raised. All of that stuff was fantastic.
Yeah.
Most
and
importantly,
I would never vote for Jill Stein anyway, by the way. Jill Stein is a grifter.
We're in agreement on that as well. So
anyway,
let's look at Pennsylvania. Let's look at the Pennsylvania stuff, because like right now having an argument over Gaza policy is
it's worthless. It's worthless. You're right. I'm sorry.
All right. So let's hear it.
So I'm looking more as well at so basically right now we have approximately like 31% of the votes are in, and comparing that, let me just give me a second to pull this up. I had it pulled up.
Like another thing that you have to remember once again is that, one, those votes are not for granted. Like, third party votes are not for granted. Those are not like automatic locks for the Democratic Party. Clearly, as these people did go out and vote for a third party candidate. It is up to the campaign to win those voters back. And not by just being like, oh, these guys are bad. And I don't like Jill Stein either. I've very openly communicated that time and time again. The point I'm trying to make is that this is an active messaging issue. If they do not take these voters seriously and they lose these voters, this is exactly what happened in 2016 as well. Be mad at the Democratic Party because no matter how hard people try outside of the Democratic Party's campaign strategies, you will never be able to outflank the Democrats on their top line messaging. That's it.
Yeah, I'm looking at New York Times. I'm looking at results from 2020 and comparing them in Allegheny County. And it looks like that Donald Trump right now, he is like pretty tight on, he's only 15,000 votes behind. 20 22,000 votes behind Harris on election day votes.
So
In
it's
Allegheny
not even a
County, which is
matchup. It's not even a
good.
matchup versus Donald Trump. But like when you look at past performance, for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania in these districts that you're looking at, do you see any movement or any momentum that favors her? Or when you look at this, are you only seeing a shift? Because I think what is happening in Georgia is most likely going to be happening everywhere around the country. And what I mean, and that's why it's a dangerous predicament to be in for Kamala Harris's campaign, which is that if Trump picks up more from the rural areas, and Kamala Harris's base of support does not hold in the cities, and her strategy of trying to detangle white suburban women from the Republican Party is not successful enough, or she can't make up for that. She can't make up for the loss in the urban areas by picking up those voters in the suburbs, then she's fucking cooked. So what I'm looking at here is Donald Trump's turnout strategy, or is Donald Trump's turnout better than 2020? And is Kamala Harris's turnout better than Joe Biden's performance in 2020?
So like I'm looking at Allegheny County, and I think basically we're going to see a slight drop off in turnout overall. I don't think it's going to end up being what it was in 2020. But Donald Trump's numbers aren't actually that far. He's probably only going to drop maybe like 10 or 20,000 votes out of like 700,000 in Allegheny County, whereas Harris is at, let me just do one more piece of math here. I'm doing this live, everybody, so this is how it works. Hold on, and Harris is looking like she will be down around 30,000 from 2020. So I would say that that number right there, so net, that's around like 10,000 out of Pittsburgh. She'll probably be below where Biden was. So I would say that we're definitely on track for a very tight one. Very, very tight. I think.
Okay, but what I'm asking for specifically is measuring 2020 performance in Pennsylvania in key districts that could in key districts that Kamala Harris has to perform in comparison to her 2024 performance. Do you have this information? If you don't, it's fine.
It's not all available yet because only 33% of the like votes are in. So I'm like trying to make reasonable projections. We do have more from Pittsburgh, which is why I was trying to use that as a kind of indicator. Basically, I would say that there's been a uniform swing toward Trump, probably.
Okay, so you're saying that off of, because look, you had a method for Kamala Harris losing. Like you were projecting Donald Trump winning the state of Pennsylvania. Like that was what your slight favor was, right? And my slight favoring for Kamala Harris winning was that even with like same day turnout in places even before we looked at the election day turnout in a lot of these places, college campuses and whatnot, my assessment of the situation was that like she will be able to perform decently well in the suburbs better than Joe Biden did even. And if that's not showing, then she's cooked. It's not showing that. That's not showing. Like basically what I said, like just to reiterate it for the chat that wasn't here when I was on last, but basically my thought was that the turnout for like cities and for young people was going to be slightly down, but the rural areas is going to be higher and juiced because the Republicans have spent so much time trying to turn out votes early. And one of the main issues that we're seeing is that the suburban performance is in line with 2020 or like less than 2020. And, Joe Biden only won Pennsylvania by approximately 80,000 votes. So if you see a further boost in the rural areas, you see a slight decline in turnout in the cities. And then you see like suburbans not really outperforming what they did prior, not seeing the big swing. That's kind of what we saw in Georgia.
That's kind of what we're seeing in Pennsylvania. Yeah, like the theory of the case that I had seems to be the one that's bearing out, which it sucks because I don't want it to happen, but
Okay. All right. Well, at least
why
fine.
don't you know, like as more votes come in, I'll be able to analyze it better because
Okay.
it's only 33% right now.
All right. I'm gonna give you a call
if you wanna-
back when there
yeah,
are.
if you want to give me a call back,
I'll
when
give
I
you a
have
call
more
back when
data
there's
for you.
more vote dumps coming out of.
Yeah, when we
of-
have more vote dumps, I'll let you know.
of
And I
Pennsylvania.
appreciate that I appreciate people are frustrated with this election. I get it.
All right. Thank you, Michael
see you
from
soon.
Pennsylvania
Yep,
Central
I'll see you
_
soon.
Committee.
Yep,
Peace.
see you soon.
Okay. Okay. Is Kamala losing? Is it too early to say? For Pennsylvania, we do not know, but Pennsylvania is the tipping point state. Okay. If Pennsylvania falls, it's Jover. That's it. If Pennsylvania falls, it's Jover. That's it. That is the race in front of us right now. Okay. On the flip side, if Penn stands, she wins. Well, no. On the flip side, if Pennsylvania stands, it's still not entirely done. So, New York Times predicts a Penn / Michigan win for Trump. That would be, I mean, there is a slight Republican leaning for Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin as it stands, but we'll see what happens as more votes come in. Okay, never mind. That's not. Is the race close for both of them? So the electoral college pathways, obviously, given that land votes, favors the Republican side. That's why Democrats need to usually win by like +5 on the popular vote in order to secure a victory in the electoral college. Or at least like the dynamic and the makeup of the way that states look ideologically. So having all of these battleground states be this close was always going to be an issue.
Out front several weeks ago, but the polls really narrowed, and here we
Tammy
are.
Baldwin
this race too
in
close to call.
Wisconsin.
She's running against Eric Hovde, who is a real estate executive and bank CEO. Let's go to Pennsylvania now. The Pennsylvania Senate race, incredibly competitive. Senator Bob Casey looking for a fourth term against Trump-backed businessman Dave McCormick. Again, this race still too close to call with 34% of the vote in. Let's head to Texas now. Colin Allred, former NFL star, making this a more competitive race than anticipated in red Texas. Senator Ted Cruz looking for re-election there. We'll continue to watch that. And the Senate race in Ohio.
If Pennsylvania is no longer close, we will know if someone is the president tonight.
Fourth term against Bernie Moreno. Let's take a look.
It just won't be the person that you would want to be president.
One seat with Governor Jim Justice winning that Senate seat there after Senator Joe Manchin announced he wasn't running for re-election. The Ohio Senate race really significant, guys, and one to watch.
All right, we've got a call on the Kansas presidential race. Donald Trump is the projected winner in Kansas now. NBC News can project. Let's see where that brings us. Here's the breakdown right now. 31,000 vote difference, but again,
Can you explain why the Pennsylvania is the tipping point? Because out of all of the states, given the electoral college, the electoral college, the way it works, there's a proportional number of electors that you get from each individual state. It's winner take all, and the way that the states work is that if a state is close enough, if a state is like a deep red state, it doesn't matter. That's going to be Trump. That's going to be Trump victory no matter what. If a state is a deep blue state, then it doesn't matter. Like California, nobody gives a shit. You know, Democrats are going to win California. There's like 6 million fucking additional Democratic voters in the state of California in comparison to the, I guess like what, 4 or 5 million Republican voters in the state of California. So like, it's like 11 million to 6 million. So that's a given. That's like what, 53, I believe, electors that you're getting, like no matter what. You need a total of 270 plus out of the 538. And because that is how it looks like, out of all of the states that Kamala Harris seemingly was competitive out of all the states that Kamala Harris was seemingly competitive in, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin are the 3 most important. This is known as the blue wall. Okay, these states usually are dictated by if the Democrats win Pennsylvania, that usually, given the demographic makeup of these other states that are quite similar to one another, the rural-urban divide that is quite similar to one another, these other states are slated to go in the same direction. Now, that's basically what people are waiting for right now. If she did enough turnout in Pennsylvania, if she had a successful turnout in Pennsylvania, and she wins Pennsylvania, then that performance is enough to extrapolate that she most likely will win Michigan and most likely will win Wisconsin as well. Seltzer Iowa poll was a fraud. Well, the Seltzer poll looks like it might have been among the worst of the cycle. Harris is likely to lose Iowa by 8 to 10 at this point. Very different from the D+3 results she had. I give her credit for posing a non-herd poll. To be honest, it will give legitimate insight into polling at large. Yeah, I mean, no, that's copium. It was bunk. It was a disastrous failure in terms of polling.
He won the state of Pennsylvania. In 2020, Democrats with Joe Biden came in and won this by more than 8 points.
This is what I was waiting for.
Biden won the state. So we were saying at the start of the night, Trump wants this number, Democrats want that number. Right now, it's sitting right in between them. It's sitting at 5. So there's still some same day to come in. Let's see this remaining 10%, what that does to this margin. Again, the same day seems to be favoring Trump. How much is it going to favor Trump? Is it going to bring it down back to this level completely? Is it going to stabilize? But that's the most complete county we have in Pennsylvania right now. And I think we said at the start of the night,
90% in, Kamala Harris is underperforming in comparison to past performance, in comparison to performance from Joe Biden. That is a really bad sign. Sorry, I have to be fucking honest. That is a really, really bad sign. I mean,
Hazleton is a majority Hispanic city. Donald Trump actually won Hazleton in 2020. Again, Trump campaign thinks it can make more gains with Hispanic voters. If they do, you'll see it here. About half the vote is in Luzerne County. And again, the same day is what's still to come here. So Trump's leading by 8 points now. He won this county by more than 14 in 2020. Question for the Trump campaign wants to get over that number. They want to improve on that number here. If the Democrats can stop them from doing that, that's a big development for Democrats. We want to go back and look at Georgia because, again, and Joy was just talking about this, the suburban support for Democrats in this Atlanta metro area. Something interesting is happening. There are some suburban counties here. You call them kind of the emerging suburbs of the Atlanta metro area, where the growth is the fastest and the diversification is the most dramatic. And that is definitely where Harris is posting improvements tonight. I think we showed you Douglas County a few minutes ago. Again, rapid growth here. It's about half black. And you can see in 2020, 25 points. Tonight, Harris is winning this by 32 points. You see it in Rockdale County. Just about all of the vote is in here. Biden got 70%. Harris has pushed that up to 73%. This is a majority black county. You can go to Newton County here. You know, this was the tightest margin of all these Atlanta metro counties. This was the tightest margin for a county that Democrats won almost all the in 2020.
Hogs are going to clip and goon to this moment.
Harris has improved on it.
What do you
see
mean?
You could take a look at Henry County. Almost 80% of the vote is in. Again, Biden won it by 20. Look at that. That's up to 30 or so for Kamala Harris. So the thing is, though, the counties I just showed you within this Atlanta metro region, relatively speaking, these are the lesser populated counties. The ones with the huge, the huge populations, you start with Fulton County, and we've been monitoring this. This is the biggest. Atlanta's here, but there's also a lot of suburbs within Fulton County.
How many votes did you get in for
This is key
Jill?
for Democrats
What?
because of the sheer size of Fulton County.
Dude,
a drop.
there's nothing funnier than blaming me for this when I have like openly been anti-Jill from the jump. Like you're now hallucinating officially. Like, shut the fuck up. I like that people immediately started assuming that Kamala Harris is going to lose, and they're now officially looking to blame someone immediately, and it's never the fucking campaign. Never. Like, immediately.
Fell below that Biden number. There's room for her to drop further here. And again, you know, just 1-2 points in Fulton County offsets a lot of the good Democrats might have done themselves in those other counties I just showed you. So see what happens there. We also have, look at this. Excuse me, Douglas. Cobb County, we also have, look at this.
Oh no. Currently watching Alan Lakeman, who has been live streaming on YouTube with his son for about 3 hours. The vibes here are not good. No mention of the keys or turning them in quite some time. I'm worried about everything, Lichtman says. I don't get it. The keys have nothing to do with like the fucking electoral college. Why is he worried? If he trusts the keys, then he shouldn't be worried at all. I don't understand. Why is he all of a sudden looking at the polls? Why is he all of a sudden looking at electoral college performance? I thought the keys were, that's it. I thought the keys were the keys, you know? The worst people gathered at Mar-a-Lago. Oh my God. At Mar-a-Lago tonight, Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy, Caitlyn Jenner, Eduardo Bolsonaro, Nigel Farage, Dana White, Byron Donalds, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, my heart can't handle it. Oh, my God. We're about to have the worst motherfuckers. Oh, my God. Nightmare blunt rotation. Oh, my God, dude. Oh, Jesus Christ. It is so bad. It's so fucking bad, dude. Oh, no. I do not want 4 years of that shit. Holy fuck. Oh, this is another damning thing that I wanted to explain. CBS News exit poll in Michigan per our polling team. Younger voters aged 18 to 29 are narrowly going for Trump right now. This deficit for Harris is in large part to younger men in Michigan who are more for Trump. Before people start talking about how this is the Arab vote, okay, if you say this is the Arab vote, I'm going to fucking lose my mind. I just want to let you know, wait till the fucking exit polls come out. You'll probably see a bunch of people that did swing for third-party votes in Michigan. But once again, they were all there for the picking for Kamala Harris. But it's not going to be them. It's going to be young white men and young Latino men that are going without a college degree, going heavily for Donald Trump, as is what the pollsters have shown time and time again. There is a massive gender crisis in this country. I've been ringing the alarm bells about that, alongside the massive misinformation crisis that we're experiencing. And, you know, you just gotta remember that. There's not that many Latinos in Michigan. Yeah, it's just white men in general. Young white men in general. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Fuck, man, we should have known sexism would kill the campaign. No. Sexism plays a role in this, but we all knew that already. Hassan mauled, yes. Hassan mauled, little boy mauled. Brother, I need you to understand something, okay? And I'm going to be very clear with you. Donald Trump potentially winning this election is not going to change the reality that your family is embarrassed to be around you and have told the rest of the family in Thanksgiving dinner that you moved away for the duration while they keep you locked in the fucking basement because your vibes are so pathetic. Okay? Donald Trump winning the presidency is not going to change that reality. If anything, it's probably going to make your situation worse. I just need you to understand that real quick. You need to fix your own damn life. Okay? That's it. Like, you need to fix it. You're not. Hit the fucking gym, little man. Okay? Fix your fucking life. Donald Trump winning or losing is not going to make it better. All right? PA showing lots of counties with 80+% vote counts moving further red. Haha, already coping, talking about some other's family. Once again, we lived under the Trump administration for 4 years. None of your lives got better when that happened. You owned the libs and you thought owning the libs would potentially make your life better. The only thing that happened was Donald Trump gave massive tax cuts to the omega wealthy and corporations. Donald Trump deregulated key sectors, poisoned your water, probably gave you even more lead poisoning so you hallucinate these fucking weirdo positions. America is on a path to complete fucking collapse. And you're over here thinking that voting for the orange man is going to somehow materially benefit you. It's not, okay? This is the same principle that so many people exhibit, okay? You handsome and I love your opinions though. Okay, thank you. But remember, Donald Trump winning the presidency is not going to improve your life. It's actually going to continue making it worse because there are fundamental problems that you have that you're experiencing in here, okay? And major material issues that you are experiencing as well. And neither party is actually providing